Tons to get into on today's episode of Peacock and Williamson. Takeaways from Week 13 Sunday, and there is a lot of them. Some teams cooked, some teams continue to roll in the NFL. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there and the new listeners. Welcome to the program. Hang out with us every day, all season, postseason, and off-season long. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Let's go to, I think, the game of the week, which was Eagles-Ravens. And, we talked a little bit about this off the air, looking at the standings, and, it does. Ravens lose their fifth game of the year, and you think, oh man, are they going to start to slip out of the playoff, their grip on a wild card spot? And it's like, no, not really. They're still 6th seed at 8-5, and you got the Denver Broncos that could join them at 8-5 after Monday Night Football, but there's no competition. Like we talked about this last week, Matt. We know who the 7 AFC playoff teams are going to be, unless there are some miracles that happen. And I think one of those teams, Cincinnati Bengals, their miracle went out the window against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let's focus on the Eagles and the Ravens here. And it was the Philadelphia Eagles who went to Baltimore and defeated the Ravens 24-19. Eagles now improving to 10-2, while the Ravens fall to 8-5 on the 2024 season.
Super impressive. And it's pretty clear. I mean, if it wasn't clear already with the winning streak coming in, the Eagles are a top 3 team at worst in the league. I mean, Buffalo, Detroit, Philly, put them in whatever order you want. I probably think everyone would put the Lions 1, but this is a Super Bowl contender with a contending defense now too. I mean, a really aggressive unit that put the clamps on what I think is one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, they really shut down Henry from a lot of this game. And I just thought that the Eagles' total makeup is so impressive right now. Like, for example, they only threw the ball like 4 or 5 times in the second half. I mean, they got A.J. Brown out there, and they're just going to give it to Barkley, and eventually he's going to bust one. And that offensive line, Mulata pulling left and right, and, Stoutland making stars out of these groups. But Baltimore's definitely a tier behind those 3 that I mentioned. Maybe only 1 tier. But the huge thing I think we need to talk about is Justin Tucker. And trust me, Steeler fans are loving that Justin Tucker has just fallen off a cliff. I mean, they're dancing in their shoes. I'm getting texts left and right. But I made a joke to my buddy about him. I'm like, if there's any other kicker, you just cut him and pull someone off the street. But you can't do that with this guy. This guy is, to me, the only kicker I've ever seen that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And it sure looks like he's done. You can have a conversation with him after the season. Justin, I think you need to retire. Whatever. But for now, I think you have to live with him. And I made the joke that it's like, you're married to the guy, except your spouse is cheating on you with everyone in the neighborhood. And you can't get out of the relationship. It's like, it's killing you,
The thing with kickers and with Justin Tucker, too, is, he gets cut maybe in the offseason. He'll probably go be amazing somewhere else again.
Maybe.
That's what happens with kickers. Sometimes you just lose it and you can't find it. And that's why it's so hard for young kickers to get their footing in the NFL, no pun intended. And it's why kickers are usually 30 years old before they really start hitting their stride in the NFL. And so many kickers, it's their second or third team that they ended up being really good on, because you just have to fight through those things. And if you're a young kicker, you don't get the opportunity like Justin Tucker has to stick around and keep getting chances to prove that he's really good. So, and look, you're going to lose close games if you're missing a whole bunch of kicks.
And they keep doing it, and they've lost. Teams have come back on them throughout the years. This year in particular, they have some bad losses. Not that this was one of them, but they're going to the playoffs, as you said. But this puts Harbaugh in a bind time and time again, do we go for it? Do we punt? Do we trust Justin? Man, used to be automatic.
And obviously the offseason was big for the Philadelphia Eagles, and everyone's going to point to Saquon Barkley, and he's been just an awesome addition for them. You sprinkle that on top,
Sure.
and the icing on that cake, and that cake starts to really pop. But bringing in Vic Fangio, and he's really got that defense fixed and figured out. They added a couple of high draft picks to the defensive secondary, which helped them. So the biggest thing to me is getting the defense figured out. Another defensive coordinator, a couple more pieces there. It goes underreported versus the Saquon Barkley addition, but clearly all those things really adding up to the Eagles coming back really strong here in 2024 and just playing phenomenal football. As good as anybody in the league right now.
Much better at linebacker, way better at corner with those rookies, and I don't think this is an exaggeration. I firmly believe Jalen Carter is or is about to be one of the truly elite defensive players in the league. Like Chris Jones level defensive tackle.
Definitely want to play the Ravens more than the Eagles, I think. Now.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you want to play necessarily either one. A team that you don't want to play and in the snow is the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know if this says more about the Bills rolling right now, 10-2 record, defeat on Sunday Night Football in the snow in Buffalo, the 49ers, 35-10. Is this more about the Niners just being straight up cooked, or the Buffalo Bills being that team that you don't want to be facing in January in cold weather? Josh Allen, it doesn't matter what the weather is. There's a couple of flat-footed throws. It's just whoom, the ball comes out, and it's like, man, this dude. And then he catches his own touchdown, or he didn't touchdown. He got it pitched back to him, so he had a completion, and then he had a touchdown on top of it on the same play with Amari Cooper pitching it back to him. And that was the moment that a lot of 49ers fans are turning off the TV if they didn't already after the long Cook touchdown run. But this one didn't feel close from jump. Buffalo Bills just really, I say cooked, but they really kind of froze them out. Did they do that? That's what they did to the 49ers here on Sunday.
Yeah. I think it's an elite team that's against a team, as you know better than anyone, down on their luck, to be kind. I mean, even McCaffrey's ripping off runs, and then maybe he's out for the year now. Like that looked terrible. Like, oh no. And just everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And Trent Williams not being out there, Bosa. I mean, we've even talked about like Hargrave being gone. Like he's like 8th on the list of big injuries, and he'd be most teams' number 1. And that's not it is an excuse, but it's, everyone deals with stuff, but it's just nothing went right for the Niners this year, and I think they're cooked. Speaking of Cook, I wanted to bring up James Cook. I mean, like, I find it funny that in some of these crazy weather games, they call them mudders, or Gale Sayers was supposedly this guy that there's 2 or 3 players on the field that it doesn't affect. Like they just don't look like they even know that it's snowing out. They're just perfectly fine. And I thought that was James Cook in this game.
I mean, just beyond, and the 49ers have lost too many players, and they're not, it's the reason they're not going to flip the switch and go make a run this year. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
But with the way that the teams were coached, the way the teams were playing, and you see the Buffalo Bills are coming out and they're adding a 6th, 7th offensive lineman on the field.
Yeah.
And then you get, and it's really all about the straight line, because once James Cook gets 100%. Going, he's going. And the 49ers were trying these runs where they're in shotgun and starting flat-footed, and it didn't work. You had to have that crease and then just hit it and go straight and get everyone moving one way and hit it straight the other way. And that was what the Bills were able to do, and the 49ers were not. And then you start to see a big difference in quarterback with Brock Purdy, who doesn't have a cannon anyway, and he's got a bad shoulder. And then you see Josh Allen throwing through the elements and using his size and running the football. It's just like, man, this is it looked like varsity versus JV out there.
Yeah, and Allen's special. That's most quarterbacks look like Purdy. Allen's special.
Has he taken the lead in the MVP voting? Maybe that's a conversation for later on in the week.
Yeah, let's chat about that tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay. But Saquon has something to say about it. I mean, there's some good candidates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, by the way, looks like a PCL is what they think. They don't know for sure. Very good chance that he is done for the year.
That stinks.
Next, speaking of a player with an injury, Trevor Lawrence hit and the skirmish that happened with the Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm seeing some nice development from Bryce Young in a loss, and Steelers, Vikings, more teams also continuing to roll here. Seahawks, another one. Let's get to all those games next. Today's episode brought to you by our newest sponsor, and you're going to want to listen up if you're still shopping for those special folks, especially those sports fans in your life. Ice Shaker is really a phenomenal gift. And if you're like me, holiday shopping list is definitely not done, far from complete. Perfect gift for you for those passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, Major League Baseball, and will make the ideal gift. It's actually created and used by the Gronkowski brothers. Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% on your order. And these bottles you can use for more than just workout as well. Kitchen grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do, and patented twist in agitator as well that breaks up powders but is silent when you shake it instead of that annoying ball. So get a special offer. Locked On NFL is the code for 25% off your order. Order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com. Ice Shakers, show your support to your team with the best branded workout bottles on the market. That is Ice Shakers, code Locked On NFL. Speaking of what makes you happy, what makes others happy, make sure you take care of yourself as well as others in this holiday season. And I think my favorite part of the holidays is it gets a little cold and you're getting cool, and it's the things that make you cozy. You're at home in December. Maybe you're putting on the fire. Maybe you got your coffee, as I got my coffee here. Maybe your tea, your hot chocolate, whatever it is. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket, hot chocolate, a movie. That's the way it is. Family is the best way for some to spend the month of December. Therapy is also a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the seasons change. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Here we go. I want to talk about this hit in Jacksonville with Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence clearly sliding and getting completely KO'd by Azeez Al-Shaair, linebacker for the Texans. There were ejections. There was a fight that broke out here. Jaguars still showing some fight and protecting their quarterback, and actually, looked a lot better at the end of this game. Maybe not that that's what they needed, but there's a team that showed more fight, the Jacksonville Jaguars, late in the game that they hadn't been showing in recent weeks. Still, the Texans were able to hang on, win this game 23-20, but marred by injury, and they pulled the card out for Trevor Lawrence, and obviously that's something the league does not want to see. And Azeez Al-Shaair is going to get hit in the pocketbook as well as getting kicked out of that football game.
I thought it was a very dirty hit, and I understand the response. And frankly, I took away a lot of positives from the Jags. Like you said, they were fighting. I think that you could look at their skill guys. Parker Washington had a big game. I always liked him at Penn State. Thomas is a star. Mix him with like Ingram and Etienne and Bigsby. They might be set at the skill position players. They signed Walker Little to a deal since we talked last too. So I think this is kind of a really attractive job under the radar. Like they're at least still playing hard. But the underlying story to me, which has been very much for the Texans all year, is they haven't been impressive. I know they're 8-5. They're the 4 seed. We were talking about the Ravens earlier. If you're the 5 seed, go into Houston in round 1. Great. I mean, that's as good as it gets as a road team in the AFC right now. Very inconsistent. They've been at the top of the league all year in penalties, and it just kind of shows their lack of discipline,
Yeah, timing's been a little bit off on the offensive side of the ball as well. CJ Stroud, there's just been plays that they were hitting that they seem to not be hitting for whatever the reason. I'm not pointing to CJ Stroud being the problem necessarily, but everything just seemed a little off, and a little bit more difficult than it was for him in his second year than his rookie year, which is usually not the case. 23-20 the win. And yeah, you're right. If the Ravens go to Houston, both 8-5 teams right now, the road Ravens would definitely be favored in a playoff.
I would think.
At the Houston Texans. That's where we're at. And so you hope everything. I haven't seen any of the most recent news on Trevor Lawrence, and I'm sure he's getting checked out and tested this morning here on Monday, but you hope he's okay, and you hate that. And we haven't talked about the Friday game either, which was the Chiefs and the Raiders. And you can go back to our preview game, and that's pretty much exactly how it went, right? Like the Chiefs are definitely going to win this game, but it wasn't going to be like 13.5 points, whatever the line was, because the Chiefs aren't blowing people out. And the Raiders kept it close, botched snap at the end of the game.
Right.
But in the end, the Raiders, did Raidery things and ended up losing this game to the Kansas City Chiefs, who squeaked by at 11-1. But there was a play in this game, and that's why I wanted to go to this game next. There's a play in this game where, and Patrick Mahomes is really good at this. He's kind of scrambling, and he has this little move where, it looks like he's going to slide, but he does it, and he gains 5 more yards while a defender just kind of walks by him and lets him cruise by. And it's like, it is hard being a defender in the NFL. And this is not to say that the hit by Al-Shaair was okay, because it was a clear late one. But if Patrick Mahomes got blown up on that play, we might freak out there too. And it's just, you got to point out how difficult it is to play defense, and it's getting harder to protect everybody with the rules. And it's just awkward out there sometimes.
It is. And this is probably a later in the week conversation too, but I've been saying this since the Kenny Pickett bowl game fake slide move, that should be a 15-yard, call it whatever you want, fake slide, not in the sportsmanship, illegal, not sportsman-like behavior or whatever. If you kind of even indicate you're going to slide as a quarterback and you don't, I'm tacking on 15 every time.
And I think that's probably what is being preached to the defensive players, because you see a play like that happen, and you're probably telling your defenders, don't let up until it's obvious that he's sliding.
Sure.
And so, because defensive coordinators don't want to see that extra first down when the other team should be punting. And so that's where it starts to get a little dicey and a little thin. But you're right. There has to be penalties if it looks like a player is going to slide and doesn't, or you just bring it back. Like that little okey doke that Patrick Mahomes did. I think that's enough to say, nope, play's dead back here where you did that little thing.
Yeah, and then maybe 15 on top of that if you're going to give me that. Even like slowing up as you go out of bounds, like Lamar and Mahomes do that a lot, and then scamper for 5 more real quick. Like, come on, man.
Right. Bounds, you're slowing down, and you go, nope, little tiptoe, let's get 5 more.
All right, I'm a superstar. I can get away with it. I mean, yeah.
Chiefs are okay. They're pretty good, I guess. 11-1. Raiders are bad. I don't know. Like, this is what we expected, and it's still just like the Chiefs. I don't know what to expect from a playoff Chief team right now. And
I don't either.
Be a similar thing where maybe they're not even favored at home in the playoff game.
I don't know. I mean, I still think they'll probably end up with a one seed, but they got some issues, to say the least. They're just not very explosive at all on offense. The tackles are a problem. Three-peating stuff. I mean, it's kind of like the Niners, really. I mean, like, things aren't going your way, and they just happen to get more bounces and more health than the Niners when these Super Bowl teams,
Let's go down the list here, because there's some teams that are looking really good that continue stacking wins on top of each other. One is the Los Angeles Chargers. Harbaugh's team is playing that brand of football. A 17-13 game is kind of what you've grown to expect from this team. And they went to Atlanta and defeated the Falcons. So now we got the 8-4 Chargers. Don't look now, but that race in the NFC South getting pretty tight and interesting there. Falcons fall to 6-6 now on the year, losing at home a 17-13 to the 8-4 Chargers.
This one's really simple to me, and rarely is it simple, because first off, on the Chargers side, I really hope McConkey isn't hurt for a while, because he's quickly becoming one of my favorite young receivers for sure. We talked off the air, we were talking about O-line versus receiver, but the interior of the Chargers O-line still needs a lot of work. Tackles are fine. Kirk Cousins lost this game. I mean, the Falcons actually rushed the passer. Their playmakers were good. Bijan's been great. Cousins was a double agent in this game, and there's a lot of talk of Penix taking over soon. I get it. I mean, he's been that bad.
And this is like, so you're in a division race.
Yeah.
You're 6-6. We'll talk about the OT win for the Buccaneers here next. They defeated the Panthers 26-23. I got a couple of takeaways from that one. You go to a rookie quarterback in the middle of a division race in December. I can't think of a time that happened, but Cousins threw 4 picks in this game. And maybe if the rookie was in there, they don't lose the game. But it's hard to say, man. You got to go from a veteran like Kirk Cousins to a rookie that we still don't know what we're going to get. And that's what's going to win you the division. So Falcons are in a really interesting spot.
I mean, 4 interceptions, but bad ones and pick sixes. And like, what are you thinking? And I don't know that he's ever going to be right. I mean, he doesn't move well at all. I mean, he looks terrible to me. And he has for a lot of the year.
I mean, he's coming off an Achilles, and he's not the youngest guy on top of it.
I wonder, I mean, this is another later in the week thing. Once they got their hands on Kirk Cousins and he was truly a Falcon, did they go, oh, no, we probably shouldn't have invested here?
Yeah, this is
not, you know what I mean?
This isn't the same guy we saw on tape,
Right. This was a bad investment. We know it from the start, and thus we draft Penix, and everyone's going to give us a hard time, but oh well.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. He's up and good.
The Buccaneers have been good, and they're in a position right now where they can go steal that division. 26-23 overtime win for the Buccaneers against the Carolina Panthers. My number one takeaway, aside from the NFC South, was that Bryce Young is coming along here a little bit. He's stacking games, and probably best case scenario for the Panthers here to take a team like the Buccaneers to overtime, still lose, still have that draft position to go help out Bryce Young, but he might still be the guy. He might be their guy. And through all of it, coming out and competing and developing says a lot about the young man, I think, as well. But making quick decisions and decisive, getting out of pocket, making plays, you start to see some of that. And it's taken a while, but you're starting to see it there with Bryce Young. So that's probably phenomenal for Panthers fans to see and have a little bit of hope still.
Yeah, there was three players I really wanted to highlight. Young was the top of the list. And early, 2 weeks ago, I'm like, oh, he's looking okay. Now I think he looks like a good quarterback. I mean, I have no reservations about going into next year with him as a starter right now. I'm actually kind of excited about it. And the other one's Bucky Irving, 25 for 152, another rookie running back that's owning his backfield now and looks really, really good doing so. And we had a fun conversation off the air before we record about a lot of aging receivers have kind of fallen off a cliff this year. Not my man, Mike Evans. He comes back and is just a stud and just a stalwart every year. I mean, he's an all-time classic.
Automatic. And with the injury, this would be the year. No, 8 for 118 and a touchdown. And Baker Mayfield, you got to love the way he's playing and how he plays for the Buccaneers. And now they're a little bit healthier, getting Evans back and in a much better spot here to go get themselves the NFC South. And that is wide open now with 2 6-6 teams there.
The problem is Atlanta won both head-to-heads.
Yeah. So the Bucs have to finish a game ahead.
Right. Yeah. But both have pretty easy schedules, and I trust one quarterback. I don't trust the other.
That's where I'm at right now. I would put the tiebreaker does hurt quite a bit, but that might even it out. It might be just straight up 50-50 for me, I guess, because they can't tie because the Bucs would not win the division in that case. And
I wish they were playing in week 18,
Right. Oh, that would be so great. Another 6-6 team, the Rams, Titans, Commanders, Seahawks winning again, a commanding lead now in the NFC West. All that and more to finish up today's episode of Peacock and Williamson. The final segment of today's episode of P&W brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and always a special offer for our listeners from the folks at FanDuel. And there's a reason they're America's #1 sportsbook. So get ready to tackle all that NFL action right now, because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you want to get in on the action during Monday Night Football or during Week 14, you can do it. Guess what other action you can get in on? NBA, NHL, everything out there, no matter the sport, you can find that action on FanDuel. Maybe your team's in draft mode. How about draft props as well. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check the latest scores, play-by-play, all of that's on the same page where you place your bets, FanDuel.com. So join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, or download the app. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode also sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, and you'll get $20 off your first ticket purchase. And when you're buying tickets, especially for, say, an NFL game, maybe a college football game, I mean, talking about stadiums with 60, 100,000 seats in it. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. Makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier, because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. And whether it's an NFL game or a football game, baseball game, basketball game, hockey game, whatever it is, maybe a concert, maybe a theater event, maybe a comedy show, you can find phenomenal deals, and especially those last minute tickets at Game Time as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The Seattle Seahawks are going in one direction, and the direction that the other team is going, the New York Jets, is exactly the opposite. So Jets are crashing. Seahawks are soaring. 26-21. Seattle goes across the country to New York. And we've talking about teams that are cooked. The Jets were already cooked, but you just see this team play, and they've got nothing. They've got no answers in the Seahawks now, feeling really good, watching the Niners lose, watching the Arizona Cardinals lose by 1 to the Vikings. And so now in control in the NFC West are the Seahawks at 7-5.
Yeah, I like where they're at. I still, their offense is what it actually has me a little concerned. But there's a couple of really weird games, and this was one of them. Is the play of the day is Leonard Williams, takes a 92-yard pick six. And I guess he reached like 16 or 17 miles an hour. He was shot out of a cannon, a 300-pound man.
Yeah,
that was incredible. And then Seattle, I didn't watch every kickoff. They don't have that on Red Zone. I didn't study this game. We're recording this shortly after. But every kickoff that the Seahawks had to deal with, they screwed up in some way, shape, or form. They couldn't field a kickoff. They couldn't cover a kickoff. What is going on here? Odd game. But the Jets look like they're playing in 1985. And it just looks like they don't have answers to complex defenses, and eventually that took over.
And the Jets jumped out to an early lead. They had a 14-0 head start on the Seahawks, and then just nothing in the second half.
Absolutely. I just think the better team eventually, cream kind of came to the top,
It turns out Achilles injuries aren't great for NFL players, even quarterbacks. But in your late 30s, you're hitting 40. We've seen it with Cousins. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. Those guys aren't the same anymore.
No, I think that's probably safe to say.
Yeah. So Jets are done. They were already done, and they're not coming back. The Seahawks in a really good spot. Defense is playing in a good spot as long as that offense can continue to put points on the board, stays healthy, can protect Geno Smith, can run the ball a little bit. They're going to be okay. I don't know how strong they're going to be in the playoffs in January, but they're looking more and more likely that they're going to be a playoff team, or the Seattle Seahawks. And it helps that the team they're competing with the closest is not the 49ers. It's actually the Arizona Cardinals. And the Cardinals lost by 1 to the Minnesota Vikings, 23-22. Really good game for the Cardinals to try to go to Minnesota, try to win this game against a team that now is 10-2. But the Cards do fall to 6-6 in a game behind those Seattle Seahawks. And Seahawks right now have that tiebreaker as well.
And I kind of feel like I missed something here previewing it, because this game to me was about two very talented, highly drafted quarterbacks that have some volatility to their game. They're not exactly Iceman or Tom Brady, and these two defenses are probably the most aggressive, the most outlier-ish style defenses out there, and led to a weird game. And I keep discrediting the Vikings, but to come back and keep chipping away, they're in a really good spot too. And I just can't get over how well they're coached.
I mean, they're a phenomenally coached football team.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings are. And I think the Cardinals are as well.
I do too. They still have very good players.
You know what's interesting? The Cardinals getting a little reinforcements here. The 31st and final, because on the other side, J.J. McCarthy not going to play this year, but the 31st and final first-round rookie made his NFL debut in this game. Darius Robinson, late first-round pick, because we all know Marvin Harrison, who had a touchdown catch in this game, had made his debut long ago, but Darius Robinson, big, powerful defensive end. He lined up on the interior as well, and I was really interested to see how they were going to utilize him, and he showed his power. He doesn't show up in the stat book with a whole bunch of pressures and tackles for loss or sacks or anything like that, but you could feel him out there, and he's a power player. And that's an important addition. Getting a first-round talented defensive lineman in December for a football team that's in a race to try to make the playoffs is pretty big for the Arizona Cardinals. So it's pretty cool to see him out there.
Yeah, and they extended Connor since we talked. I mean, I think that a lot of that's for leadership, but they have a good young core. Harrison did more in this game. McBride every week is pretty exciting. I made the joke on Twitter. I mean, he has 73 catches without a touchdown. Always a McBride's made, never a bride.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that out of that.
Not bad. The other thing with James Conner, too, is they drafted Trey Benson pretty high.
Yeah, right. They're okay. They're in good shape.
But they're like, he's still a distant number two. Like James Conner is our heart and soul in this offense, and we're going to re-up him even. And he's the guy back there. And, and they double down on that. And he's going to be the guy going in next year, too, as the RB1 for the Arizona Cardinals. So, putting up a fight. But in the end, the Minnesota Vikings were able to hold on and win that 23-22. No ill effects from any injuries for Sam Darnold either, it looks like.
Yeah, I think he's okay. I mean, he still makes throws every game. Makes me go, ooh, I remember that Sam Darnold. But,
we haven't even talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers putting up 44 points on just a god-awful Bengals defense and really kind of putting the Bengals to bed here, right? 4-8 now are the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's just not going to happen for them. And the Pittsburgh Steelers were the ones, I think, that put them away here finally. And 9-3 Steelers, 44-38 win for Pittsburgh.
My biggest takeaway is the Bengals defense is almost embarrassingly bad. I mean, they can't tackle. They don't have much talent. It's Hendrickson and the Pips. They're really, really bad. But the Steelers of the last 5 years, even at the end of Ben's career, would not have won this game. I mean, they can't win games in the 30s and 40s. This team can. And Wilson was really, really good in this game, as was Burrow. Steelers defense gave up a lot of yardage, and their success rate wasn't good, but as usual, made a ton of big plays when they needed it most. And the Steelers are in a really good spot. They won 5 out of 6 with Wilson as their quarterback.
If I told you before the season, and I only gave you this one clue about the Steelers, I said at some point this season, it doesn't matter who the defense is they're against, doesn't even matter which quarterback it is, the Steelers are going to have a quarterback that throws for 414 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game, and that's the only information you have. I think you feel pretty good about the Steelers season.
Yeah, and I would absolutely think that it was blown coverage left and right. There was some fluky, crazy plays. Really wasn't like that. I mean, it's him checking it down to the right guy, getting in the right spot. Yeah, he hit his moon balls too, but just played a really efficient game.
Yeah, the touchdown to Pickens wasn't like a 50-50 ball. It was a little wide receiver screen, and Pickens makes a guy miss and gets in the end zone. A little Justin Fields action, he's sealing it and making a run at the end of the game too.
But perfect example. That's Fields comes in to seal the game. All you can do is just not allow a first down. They don't even seal the what do you think he's in there to do? It's such bad defense. I mean, don't let him run for the first down. You still have a chance to win, and he just easily scampers, slides. Game over. Yeah.
A few more notes here. I love the go for 2 Indianapolis Colts. Shane Steichen defeating the Patriots 25-24. And again, we talked about this with the Carolina Panthers, and we've said it multiple times with the Patriots. Good on the Patriots. Perfect outcome. Continue to develop your young quarterback and be competitive, but still lose the game. So Patriots fall 3-10. They lose to the 6-7 Colts, who are knocking on the door, but we outlined at the beginning of the show, there's still a little bit of a gap here for them trying to run down the Denver Broncos or the Baltimore Ravens potentially. They're still 6-7 right now, and they are the 8th seed. And they have to have games like this that they win. And we'll see if the Colts are able to, play spoiler or even squeak into the playoffs, but they might, they might be too far back to try to pull that one off.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate all that. And this is presumptuous, but I'm hoping and kind of thinking these two young quarterbacks might meet in the AFC for the next 10 years. They're both looking quite promising.
Maybe the Falcons can look at the Colts and say, well, they're competing and developing their young quarterback. Maybe it's time for us to go to our young quarterback.
I don't think that's crazy.
The Commanders whoop up on the Titans, put up 42 points on that Titans defense, 42-19, half of those points came in the first quarter. I mean, the Commanders come out hot. And a couple of those touchdowns from Terry McLaurin. He was 8 for 73 touchdowns as the Commanders beat the Titans 42-19. And it was a big win for the Commanders. They had to remind themselves they can go win some football games here in December and solidify themselves as a playoff team here, improving to 8-5.
Yeah, and I still think the Titans defense is quite good. So this is wonderful. We can stop talking about Cliff. Daniels looks healthy again. They look like a playoff team, not a contender, but they look like a playoff team. I thought this was really encouraging for Washington.
Brian Robinson, too. So he's been banged up, and then Eckler gets banged up. So Eckler goes to IR, but then Brian Robinson's back and healthy and going for 103 yards and only 16 carries in a score in this one, too.
Mm-hmm. No, they ran the ball well.
Yeah. And let's see, where are we at? The Los Angeles Rams defeat
the last one, yeah.
New Orleans Saints 21-14. And a little late charge by the Rams here in this football game. They were down 6-0 at halftime. Puka Nacua with a TD. And the 6-6 Rams still in this thing, still competing, still battling. The Saints no longer competing, no longer battling, even though they showed some signs of life here a few weeks ago. Alvin Kamara, though, is kind of a forgotten name. 112 yards on the ground for the Saints in this football game, and that's where you can get the Rams is on the ground, but still not enough for the Saints here to defeat the Rams.
I honestly don't have a ton of takeaways except the Rams started very slow and then started picking it up and getting better and better. Nacua was the featured receiver for sure, and unfortunately, it looks like Taysom Hill is now out for the year. That was a bad injury, and they're just out of weapons. Like Valdez-Scantling's actually played well for the Saints, and the coaching change actually did some good for the Saints. I mean, rarely do you say that, but there's been a couple coaching changes. The Bears offensive coordinator that have kind of paid dividends midseason.
Purgatory. Saints are in purgatory. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that football team. And really, I think the Rams have.
They might be too, but they're still alive. Yeah.
The timeline is interesting because they have work to do. How long is Stafford going to stick around? But as long as McVay's there, I think they'll figure something out at quarterback. But a really interesting team there that I think is going to kind of fall off here. They just don't quite have enough, even though they've done a really good job of sort of retooling there with some young players, like obviously Nacua with the touchdown, but Verse and so some things to build on for the Rams.
There are.
Not
but
gonna,
it's not. I think we've said this for 6 weeks, though. They beat bad teams and then they struggle against good teams.
Yeah, and they're going to finish the season, 8-9, 9-8.
Yeah.
The Browns and the Broncos, Monday Night Football. We'll have that broken down. We'll get your questions this week on the mailbag as well. And one of the topics we're going to cover is wide receivers coming up this week. And did the league jump the shark and paying wide receivers? Is that the premium position that they're getting paid right now around the NFL? And a whole lot more to come daily. Appreciate all the everydayers. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson.